Hello, explorers! Welcome back to another Explorers Emporium, Explorers STEAM Science Workshop. Today, we are going to learn about making a pH indicator. We're going to be able to test acids and alkalines, acids and bases. So we're going to do an indicator for the first part of this STEAM workshop, and then after that, we're going to show how pH indicators work. So for today, some of the things you're going to need. We're going to have a little cooktop. So if you are a younger explorer, be sure to make sure you include your parent or a guardian to help you with this experiment. When you're working with something hot, always make sure you have an adult around to be able to keep you safe and in case something goes wrong. Also, we have some baking soda, which will be used later in the experiment, some vinegar, also called acetic acid. We have a plethora of pipettes that we'll be using today. I brought a bunch of beakers just in case. We have a microplate. This is not necessary, but it's fun to use, and we'll show you this one. Then, of course, we have an assortment of test tubes. The key component, red cabbage. So today's pH indicator is going to be red cabbage. We also have tap water, and most importantly, this one's going to be a key feature too, distilled water. It has to be distilled water to do this experiment. And then in the end, we will also have some collection cups to store our pH indicator. And of course, it's good to have hot gloves because you're going to be working with some stuff that is hot. Okie dokie? So here we go. So the first thing we're going to do is a thing called leaching. We're going to be taking the purple color out of our cabbage here, our red cabbage, and we're going to boil it and drain that color into some water. This is why it's important that we have distilled water, and I'm going to show you the difference between distilled water and regular water once we get the pH indicator made. You need a water that has basically nothing in it except water. There's nothing else mixed in here except H2O. Okay? That means it's going to be neutral when we do this test. So that's a key component. But basically, red cabbage has a natural ability of testing acids and bases. So all we're going to do is we're going to take a few leaves off. We're just going to strip it. And the more purple this is, the better. Okay? So make sure it's purpley is what we're doing. And all we're going to do is something pretty simple. We're just going to tear this guy up into little tiny pieces, smallest pieces we can without getting overdone. We're just going to make little tiny pieces out of it. Little itty bitty teeny tiny pieces. And we're just going to put them into our pot. So this one's pretty straightforward. So we're just tearing them up. This is kind of fun. Little tiny pieces. There we go. Perfect. Just little tiny pieces. More littler pieces, the faster it'll happen, the better the leaching process will be. Then we're going to use the distilled water, and we're going to put enough in there just so that we can cover all the leaves and boil it. Now, if all goes well, the water will turn a very rich, deep purple color. So we're going to crank that up now. So now we have our water, it's starting to boil. So we're going to give that just a few minutes, and you will be able to see the water start to bubble. And when it bubbles, it's going to get about 212 degrees, and it's going to start to boil the coloring from the red cabbage into the water, and we're going to get a really good purple liquid at the end of this. Now, you can also, you don't have to boil it. If you have a juicer, you can also just put it through a juicer and take the liquid that way too. So the big trick is to make sure that your juicer hasn't been washed with any type of bleach or anything that might throw off the test. And then the cup that you're going into, same thing, make sure it doesn't have any cleaners and stuff that might actually throw off the test. So we want to boil this water up as fast as we can. And then slowly but surely you'll start to see the water turn purple. So, our water is boiling really well now. You only have to do this for about 4 or 5 minutes. It doesn't take very long. If you kind of look at it already, you can already see that there's a very strong purple color in the water. So it happens pretty quickly. So we're going to go ahead and turn this off now. And we're going to let it cool for just a minute. And then we're going to put it into one of our collection cups here so that we can use this to do our experiments with. But that's all it takes to make a pH indicator, and you'll see what this does. It's actually having a lot of fun doing these experiments, and then you can go around your house testing different things. It's pretty fun to do. All right. So we'll let that cool off for just a moment, and then we'll go to phase 2 of pH indicators. Okay, here we go. So we're going to put on a hot glove. Remember, safety's always our key feature. As scientists, we always want ourselves to be safe. We want the people around us to be safe, because if we don't keep safe, we get hurt, then we can't do science anymore. So we're going to make sure we keep ourselves safe here. So I'm going to put my collection cup there. I'm going to take some of my cabbage juice here, and I'm just going to pour it into there. We're going to pour it in. Yeah, I'll do it over cloth. Right. We'll set that off to the side. Put a lid on that one. See how purple that is? Pretty awesome, right? All right, so there's one good sample. We'll go ahead and do the other one. Take another sample. All right. So now we're on to the second stage of making an acid-base indicator test. So the one thing that we need, this is going to be a key component to doing testing, is we need to have a scale, a measurement system. And I'll show you what I mean. So I'm going to take one of our pipettes. So as we use our pipettes today, there's a reason why I have so many, is that as we do our test today, if you had watched our Science Basics video, you'll learn that you don't want to reuse a pipette in all the different aspects of the science experiment, because if you do something here, it might have a chemical in it, and if you do it again in a different experiment over here, you might get some of that original chemical into here. So we keep everything kind of separated. So always use new pipettes as you go through and do the different science experiments. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take a little bit of this pH indicator. So, as I mentioned, distilled water, completely neutral, not acidic, not alkaline. So if I put it into the test tube, you'll notice that it's got this beautiful purple color. Okay? This beautiful purple color. If I take another test tube and we fill it a little bit, and then we're going to take another test tube on this side, also purple. So everything's still purple right now, but the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take a mixture of water with baking soda. Sodium bicarbonate. So I'm going to try to do an accurate measurement here I'm going to put into my cup about 100 milliliters of distilled water. Again, we're only working with distilled water. And in the second cup, because we're already working with something that's a liquid, we are just going to put vinegar straight into it. Same thing, we're going to put 100 milliliters of acetic acid, vinegar, into the second cup. Okay? So acetic acid is going over here. And then our baking soda mixture, which we're just going to tap some into here. Usually I would do the spoon. That would be proper. We're going to take a separate pipette. We're going to stir it up. We're going to make sure that's a good, clean mixture. And I'm going to show you what happens when we put this into our pH indicator, the cabbage that we just boiled up. Okay? So all the baking soda has dissolved into the distilled water. Don't use tap water for this experiment. You got to use distilled. Remember, we need something neutral. That way our science experiment stays nice and clean. So here's what's going to happen though. If I take some of the baking soda water and I'm going to put it into one of my test tubes, watch what happens to the color. It turns blue. Almost like turquoise. Is that awesome? So this is a way, if we use this, we know that anything that turns blue is an alkaline, a base. Over here, we have our acetic acid. We had that other test tube that we prepped. So we're going to put that into there, and look what happens to it. So acids turn our indicator pink, a light red, reddish color. Okay? So, alkaline, a base, acid, you can see the definite different colors there. And then of course we got neutral, is purple. So here's the tricky part. We know what the extreme of the alkaline is. We know what the extreme is of the acid is, but we don't know the increments in between. And in order to do that, we have to do a thing called ratios. Okay, so we're going to do a quick little test. What we want to do is we want to mix just enough baking soda water into an acetic acid or vinegar water to get it so that it turns back to this original purple. Okay? So we've got to mix the two so that they become perfectly back into that purple color. Okay? So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a test tube and we're going to be very careful with our measurements here. So there's my pH indicator. I'm going to do it about a third of the way full. Okay, so it's about a third of the way. I am going to be very careful with my pipette. Now again, if you watch the Science Basics video, one of the key things working with the pipettes is not to squeeze real hard. You got to be really controlled because now we're going to do something called, we're going to be counting drops. So we have to be very careful how we do that. And if you go back and watch that test, you can learn how to do very simple drops. It's all about keeping an even pressure and not squeezing, letting go, squeezing, letting go. You have to keep a nice, even pressure. So we're just going to put 2 drops in here. We're going to see if that's enough. 1, 2. That was enough to change it. So now we have that pink color. Let's go 3 drops. All right, so 3. Remember that number 3, and now we got that really pink color going. So now, how many drops of the baking soda water is it going to take to change this pink color back to purple? Okay? So here we go. I'm going to get down low for this one. All right, so very carefully, we're going to start counting. 1, 2, 3, give it a little shake. That's pretty good. Put a fourth drop in. Let's see what happens. All right, so it looks like 4. So what happens is that whenever you're working with acids and alkalines, they're not always equal in strength. So in this case, 3 drops of acid, 4 drops of alkaline baking soda makes it neutral. So the acid is actually a little bit stronger than our baking soda mix. Okay? So we have to keep that in mind when we go to do the mixture now. Okay, so what we've done is we have made this side acidic, we have made this side alkaline. So the blue is alkaline, the red, the pink, is the acidic, and in the middle is neutral. What we're going to try to do is create a gradient scale of colors to show the different levels of acidicness. So as we go from purple to green, as we go from purple to red, we want to have a color scale in there to show different strengths of the acids and different strengths of the alkalines. That way when we're testing something, we can tell if something's really a strong acid, or if something's really a strong alkaline, or if it's just something in between. Okie dokie? So here we go. So the first 2 test tubes, we are going to put in, we're going to actually put in some Cabbage indicator. And we want these to be pretty level with each other. So about 1/3 of the way full. All right. So now what we're going to do is we're going to be putting in 4 drops, actually 3 drops of acetic acid on this side. And then on this side, we're going to go to our baking soda mix, our sodium bicarbonate. We're going to put 4 drops over here. Okay, so now both sides have the pinks and the blues. They're all pretty even. Now we're going to come back in over here. On this side, we're going to be putting some acid drops in. Now the ones that I want to be bluer, we're going to only put 1 drop in over here, and then 2 drops on this one, because we know that 3 drops would make it the perfect purple. So let's see if we're pretty good on this. All right. Now over here, the reverse, the baking soda, we are going to do, well, something pretty close. We're going to do 1 drop here and 2 drops in the other. All right. So now we have a scale of colors as they change from neutral to alkaline, from neutral to acidic. So as we get color changes, as we're doing tests, we'll have things to compare it to. So we have that, which is really awesome. So that's where, like, this little microplate comes in. This will allow us to see some colors nice and up close. So we're going to take some samples of each of these. We're we're going to fill the little microplate. Remember, we don't reuse them, so we're going to stick this one off to the side, grab a new one, take a sample of our next color. Okay. We don't reuse it. Third color. This is the smallest of variation. Fourth color, the neutral. Another one. Now we're heading into the alkalines. A little stronger. And then of course our pure sodium bicarbonate, baking soda. All right. So now we have this little color chart to work with. And then our first thing we're going to test is we're going to test our tap water. Let's see what happens with tap water. So we're going to take a random, nice, clean test tube. We're going to pour a smidgen of our tap water into here. And now we're going to put some of our pH indicator. And there should be a color change. In fact, it might be. Let's try this. We're going to put it right about, I think, into the alkalines. I'll put it right next to this. So I'm going to put a couple of drops of our indicator into one of the bubbles. And then I'm going to take a little bit of a drop here of regular water. I'm going to tap that into there. But you'll notice that tap water is kind of bluish. It's got blue. Kind of got a blue tint to it. So the reason why tap water, it looks like it's pure, it looks like it's clean, but it actually has been cleaned before it's been put through our water system so we can drink it and stuff. So it has some cleaners in it. Sometimes they'll use a chlorine and things like that. So pool water would probably come out pretty blue. Unless, of course, you've put acids and things like that into it to help balance it and such. But tap water, when it goes through our system, it has a tradition of coming out kind of blue, because it's got the different cleaners in it that makes it safe and healthy in order for us to drink it. So where distilled water is purple, tap water is blue. So now that you have your pH indicator, now you can go around, so it looks like it's just one notch below being the neutral. So it's closer to this one than it is to our neutral. So there's the mix. There's the next color stage. So as we do our gradient scale, you can see it's close to these guys. So it's not overly alkaline, just a little bit from the cleaners that they put into it. Now, so the fun part is now, take your pH indicator, take some test tubes, take some samples of the waters and liquids. Try orange juice, try lemonade, and different things out of the fridge that you might drink. Try some bottled water and see what happens. Have fun with it. So this concludes this Explorers Emporium Explorers STEAM Science and Nature workshop this time. We will do more with this at a future date. We look forward to it. Also, if you enjoyed this workshop, please give it a thumbs up. Don't hesitate to subscribe to our channel. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, also on Instagram. If you do have questions, don't hesitate to put questions down below, or if you join the Explorers Emporium Explorers on our Facebook page, you can put your questions in there too. If you have ideas for another science experiments that you'd like to see, please don't hesitate to put them in there too. We're looking for fun. We're going to have fun. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you have a beautiful and safe day, and we will see you soon.